Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Kelly, dirty birdie, once again you have awoken me from my slumber as you stumble into the fox den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio, the home of the Midnight Society. Absolutely delicious. I do really enjoy feeding time. And now that I am fully revamped and the shackles have been cut loose by Dirty Birdie, let's once again take a walk into the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, once again, you have found your way to the late night fire as you sit down and burn some timber with us and read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book. Dirty Birdie Kelly has ventured through the darkness in the foggy forest to join us in an attempt to figure out what is occurring across the United States and the globe. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Excellent to hear, my friend, and just been, really busy in a good way and editing, working on podcasts. I got 3 today. Got the Bruins to catch up on, and I got I went reverse in history and decided to write down some things, even though I could have just put it into my phone. So I need to now then add the things that I hand wrote on pieces of paper into my book and my cell phone. But that's about it. What about you?
I have been busy doing podcasts, researching, and I have to shoot a video for my own podcast, and I got to figure that out. So that's going to be trial and error. So that's going to be fun. You posed the question a week ago that this Cabela's Dangerous Hunts 2011 had a mythological monster in it called Kafar.
Yes, which is what we call like the Werehyena, and I would love to dive into that with you, but actually you're gonna love this. So that animal that y'all found where it was run over, we have had some really great scientific minds looking at that, and those back molars that are really large like that literally fit identically to hyenas, and they look extremely different than any sort of canine. So we believe that there is some sort of lineage in that deceased animal of hyena based, because those back teeth identically fit all the known hyena teeth across the world. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, I did look at that picture, and it's the angle which they took the photo. They just got a real good close up of it, and that the muzzle on it was completely smashed, like front tire smashed. That, or natural decay, teeth fall out, stuff like that.
It's just really interesting with those back molars right there. Even when I look at other sort of canines opening their mouth and such, and then I look at the hyena jaw, man, those huge fat teeth right there just literally fit identical into that. So it's just pretty interesting stuff, man.
Well, when the body decays, it actually pulls back a lot of the tissue and stuff like that. So it looks bigger than it actually is. That's why people claim, like vampires, for example, people that aren't saying they're a vampire. When the body starts to decay, it actually shrinks back. So they got longer fingernails and teeth and stuff like that. So that's a thing. But
no, you're very right, man. That is all true as well, right there. So unfortunately, I feel like that might be one of those things right there. No matter what, I don't know if we're going to be able to get clarity too much on it, because they obviously have either removed it or somebody else, like an animal or something, pulled it away. So now pretty much, you just have to go off of what, was reported, that it was a red fox, because until I guess one of our scientific members could actually sit down and get their hands on it and, and look through the jaw and stuff, I feel like now all we have is that perspective image, which is just like with anything else. I mean, those hunters that are hunting big game, yes, they're big game, but it's all perspective shots, man. So,
well, I did walk that area twice, and I walked from the first report. I walked from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill. I didn't see anything, and then when I got more clarification of where she saw it, I walked that area again, and I didn't see anything. I couldn't find anything. So I think maybe, and this is weird, I think maybe Fish and Game came out and scooped it up and took it away. I don't know why they would do that, but there's that. So,
or she maybe potentially just, exaggerated as to where she found that too, which is definitely something that could be logical as well. I mean, she could say she found that on that trail, but in actuality, that could have came from Canada, so.
Yeah, well, I don't think she did, but the clarification was kind of vague. She was just like, "Oh, it's off this road." Okay, great. And she's like, "I walk these trails." I'm like, "All right." And she said it was just off the road. Well, I walked around that kind of area, and well, growing up in Idaho, you can say, "Well, this is a trail." Okay, great. Go on that trail, and the next thing you know is that you got cops coming at you. And you're like, "Hey, I thought this was a trail." Nope, this is private property, or something like that. So you got to be real careful where you walk. So I don't know where she saw this thing at. I couldn't find it. So yeah, I know it was kind of weird like that. So you can see like trails and think, "Oh, that's a hiking trail." Come to find out, no, that's a game trail. You go start walking down it, and the next thing you know is you got security or police or somebody going, "What are you doing on my land? Get out."
Yeah, that's not a good thing, man. Well, I actually got a little bit more stuff that's going to tie into what I'm going to let you speak on here in just a second. But I was diving into African culture because literally, like I said, I was going across the globe, every culture, just looking at their references to cynocephali, werewolves, etc. And every culture, same thing. It's either a wolf or a hyena. Very interesting. But in Africa, they do not have werewolves. They have their own version, Boda, a werehyena, or another terminology for basically their version of a shapeshifter. But it comes in two different variants. One, you have to be a dark aligned blacksmith, more or less, meaning you've done questionable stuff. And then every couple generations, your offspring will be susceptible to becoming this supposed beast. But you have to use a special stick and rub it, which they don't tell you what you're rubbing on it. And also you need special ash. And then you can, transform yourself. Well, their other version is a cynocephali hyena, meaning it doesn't change. It is just a hominoid hyena. And what it does is it wears cloaks, baggy clothing, and they will act like they are trading at the outskirts of town, or they are in trouble, or need help, and they'll lead you off, and then you follow them and they take you. So right there is some really interesting stuff, because there is this game that Cabela made, and we all know who Cabela is. I mean, when you go into their store, the Bass Pro Shop, all that stuff, you see nothing cryptid based whatsoever. It's outdoor stuff and it's straight to the point. Okay. They do pride themselves on being the most realistic hunting games and everything out there. Okay. Well, in this game, quote unquote, Dangerous Hunts from, I believe, 2011, you are hunting grizzly bears, deer, and everything else. Yeah. Okay. Seems pretty normal. But what the heck, Christmas trees? Since when has Cabela ever tried to make anything that wasn't outside of realism? And why do they have the reference to the hyena beast at the beginning? And also throughout the game, there's little hidden cookies where you end up finding hikers that are lost, torn up campsites, and these references to cryptids and dogmen and such. And I am baffled by that, and we have been trying to reach out to the production team of this game, and we did find out that the first 3 games were created by the same family. So we have a hypothesis that either somebody they knew or somebody that was actually on this developmental team had some sort of experience like this that involved a hyena, or why else did they put it in this game?
Right. And I was looking into this, and I watched a couple of YouTube videos on it, and looked on Wikipedia, looked on online, and they all come to the same conclusion that this isn't a hunting game. This is a survival game. And in the past one, they kind of hint that there's something going on with the family, per se. And during this this game, you are kind of finding out that your dad or this guide is pushing you or telling you that you are, quote unquote, you know, a kaftar, you have the curse of the you have a curse like a werehyena, werewolf type thing, because in the beginning of this game, the dad tells you to take a bite of this heart of an elk, and he has you're the main character. You have a smaller, like a little brother, and he tells you to eat the heart, but not the other guy, the other son, for some reason. And yeah, you're playing through this, and you're getting more and more notes that your dad isn't on the up and up of telling the truth about a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's like they're not telling you that you're cursed or it's hereditary.
They point at it, like you said, and it's so baffling as to why they just went off the rails like this. You know what I mean? Nothing has been made since then similar to this. And sure, I guess Cabela could have decided to make something unrealistic, but they pride themselves on realism. And again, I'm just still sitting here trying to figure out why the heck they would put their name on something if it was completely far-fetched. It literally seems like you said that they're hinting at things. I mean, they didn't want to go too far and, make it so people were like, what the heck is this? This isn't Cabela's. But what the heck are they making references at werehyenas, dude, and eating raw hearts and stuff? That's just bizarre, man.
Well, growing up in Idaho during hunting, there's a thing. I think it's gross, but you shoot a deer, elk, whatever, and you part it out or whatever. And one of the things you do is you take a bite out of the heart. I don't know why. I think it's gross. I never do it. that's a thing.
Nasty.
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know. It's probably, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a Native American tradition, but I think it's to say thanks for the harvest or something.
Jeez,
But
man. Ugh.
yeah, I couldn't imagine.
I can't even
Just
eat an undercooked burger, bro. It's nasty, dude. And like you just said, I don't know, man. I mean, that's kind of bizarre. I've never gone hunting, man, in my life. Okay, it's not something I'm really about, to each their own. But man, when I was super young, dude, I was just being a typical boy, and I made like a little kind of spear and was just walking around the forest, and I found this pond or like a little stream, and there was this frog in there. Man, I don't know, just being a little turd, dude. I, threw my little spear at it, and man, I hit one of its legs and ripped its legs off. And ever since then, dude, the feeling I got inside was absolutely horrible. And I still to this day, man, remember that and feel really bad. And I try to purposely now go out of my way to not ever allow anything like that to occur. So, yeah, man, to each their own and stuff. But man, I just don't have the heart to, dude, I let like moths out of my room, man. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, I get that. But around here, you can. Some people go out and they get a deer tag. It's a family thing sometimes. Like you got a couple of kids. One is 13. Another one's 12. So you got two underage kids. That's two deer tags. That's two doe tags. And then you got probably mom and pop, and that's two. That's another two tags. So they go out, they hunt, and they fill their freezer. And that's the thing. Usually, when there's I guess it doesn't matter. Usually, when there's a youth hunt, mom and dad take them out to go hunt to their first deer, and they get their first deer. And I don't know why I would never do this to it. I would never ever do this to a kid. But they harvest their first deer and they start to field dress them, and they get to the heart and they cut it out, and they're like, "You have to take a bite. You have to take a bite out of the heart, because you know you have to say thanks for the harvest to whoever."
And then get a
And
nice taste of some sort of parasite inside of you, right?
I don't think you're going to get a parasite, but gross.
Just the reason I had mentioned that, I guess, is I know in pork, that's why you have to make sure to always cook it, because there's a parasite that lives in there that gets inside of your brain. And I don't know, man. I mean, as far as I know, we're not really supposed to be consuming raw meat. I mean, I guess if you have to, but sushi even makes people sick and gives people worms and stuff. So, yeah, man, that's pretty nasty stuff, dude.
You're talking about trichinosis
Yeah, there you
in
go,
pig.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah, so that hasn't been a thing for a long time, because they put the kibosh on just feeding pigs anything. But still, I wouldn't want to hunt something and be like, yeah, I know that's traumatizing. I know that's traumatizing, Junior. And we just had to gut the steer and pull the guts out. And just to make it worse, I want you to take a bite of the heart.
Dude, that's you're gonna laugh, man, but I eat a lot of vegetables, but I have been domesticated so much that wild meat is absolutely disgusting to me. Whether it's moose, deer, or any of that stuff, man, a hamburger tastes much better than any of that stuff. But it's so funny because friends of mine, like up in Canada, that have never really had store-bought meat, because it tastes bland and such. But then to me, that wild gamey taste is absolutely disgusting. And to anyone out there that doesn't understand the smell of blood, before I give Dirty Birdie the mic back here, man, one time with my mom, dude, she had fallen out of the bed because, rest in peace, mom, but she had a lot of health stuff going on, and she had split her head completely open. I had never seen so much blood in my life, dude. And man, all I could smell was iron, and it literally almost made me nauseous, and just how sticky and everything, and just the thought of all that is traumatizing in general. So I understand, yes, when I'm eating like a chicken or something, that somebody had to do that, but I'm all set with doing any of that, man. I mean, that is just messed up to me, brother.
Oh, you want to know a trick to get rid of the gamey taste out of game meat? Get a Ziploc bag, put your meat in there, and then fill it up with buttermilk and let it sit overnight for like 24 hours. 24 hours takes the game out of the meat.
Very interesting stuff. You know, at some point, my uncles and stuff will probably get their hands on some of that. And I mean, I can't really say no to free food. So as long as it's remotely healthy, I'm definitely willing to try it and such, man. So I will have to look into that. But I even remember at a point in time, you know, because I like to eat healthy. Someone's like, you know, iron and all this stuff inside of beef liver, and it's really good for you. Dude, I took the tiniest bite of beef liver. I literally vomited my brains out. And I was like, yo, how the Christmas trees does anybody want to eat an organ that literally filters out poison? And then people are eating like chicken hearts and bladders. It's like, yo, I'm all set with all that. I'll have my broccoli, man, and I'll roll with this.
Yeah, I get it. But the best wild game meat I ever ate in my entire life came from my neighbors when I was 13 years old, and my neighbor was part of the Native American tribe here, and he went out and he got a moose, and he had tons of meat, so he's just giving it away. And he came over to the house, and he's like, "I got a bunch of meat, I'm giving it away." Yeah, everybody's like, "Cool." He's like, "I got moose jerky," and I'm like, "Moose jerky? That sounds interesting." He gave me like a handful of it. The best jerky I have ever ate was moose jerky. It was so good. And I haven't had anything ever since. And I've had alligator jerky and kangaroo jerky and a couple other ones, but that, that took the cake. I don't know who made it, but man, that was good. Anyway.
That's so funny. Before I ask you some more about this game, the only thing I can think of is when I was younger, we went to, I believe it was Disney World or Land, whichever one's down in Florida, and they had like all these grasshoppers and things that were covered in chocolate and peanut butter. I mean, I tried those. It didn't really taste like bad. Not something I would just prefer necessarily to consume all the time, but it is very interesting. And I don't know. So when this Cabela game, you think that they were trying to push the aspect of something that they experienced or that they have heard about and, you know, find some sort of credence in? I mean, let's be real. 1,000 to 2,500 people every year go disappearing in our national forest. 5% of those people are never found again. That's a pretty alarming number. So things are occurring, and it's really not far-fetched just because you and I are talking about this and they work for Cabela. There's really no reason for them not to have heard things like this either. So do you think that they were just trying to put a narrative to maybe switch up their game and put more entertainment in it, but they've never done that since then? Or do you think there's some sort of clarity here that they're trying to hint at?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's Cabela's. I mean, they've been all around the world, and from what I think maybe they were in Africa and they heard about it and they put it in the game. Put it in the game because they're like, "Oh, that sounds really interesting," like a big bad main boss. So they put it in there, but I don't. I don't know. I mean, with
Yeah, like you said, man, I mean, it's interesting because throughout the rest of that game, you never deal with anything else cryptid based or something that would be listed as a cryptid. I mean, you deal with bears, you know, you're fishing, you're hunting elk and such. So that's the only reference in there. And it makes me wonder that if, you know, I mean, for example, Far Cry Primal, that's a really great game, you know, where you're Neanderthals and such. But again, that's not really necessarily trying to go for full realism. I mean, you got the animals that existed and stuff, but it still has no sort of really truth. I mean, a little bit, but an action game here. Okay. So that's not what Cabela is really, is about, which is interesting. And I mean, the Werehyena and the Boda is huge in African culture. And the more I think about just all this stuff, nothing's impossible, but I feel like it's nearly impossible to have these tribes in Africa speaking of things. And then you have these Celtic people that weren't around even at the same point in time or had no way to communicate with each other. Then you have the Arab culture speaking of these. Then you have the Greeks and Romans. Then you have the Native Americans. Then you have the Egyptians, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Chinese, the Japanese, the country of India. It almost seems impossible for all these cultures to be literally making the reference of something that couldn't have been potentially existing or that someone saw. And the reason I say that is I believe now here at the North American Dogman Project, we officially have the best Dogman evidence on file. And the reason I say that is recently in Russia with the permafrost, well, they have found numerous other wolves, puppies, modern day canines, ancient canines. Doesn't look anything like this. This head that they found is in perfect condition. It is jet black, midnight black, and has very elongated fangs that hang down. And it legit looks like some of the depictions of the dogman and such. So are we going to be able to ever fully figure out what that DNA is? I hope so, but this is coming from Russia. I don't even know how I've been able to get this much information because it's great that they've shared this. But again, we're speaking about Russia. So if they do find that it's something that hasn't existed or does potentially have, lineage to something like a dogman, I don't think they're going to respond to us about that. I don't know how we're going to really get over that hurdle, but I mean, the images are there, the articles are there, and it's as real as it gets. There is something from the permafrost that looks identical to a dog man. I don't know, man. I'm just so baffled here as to why all these cultures have seen something when it was impossible for them to speak to each other. I mean, sure, modern day times, you and I could start up something saying we saw this occur, pass it around us, then boom, 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 we plant a seed. Well, that's because we can properly communicate with each other. But if you were coming from Ethiopia and you were trying to go to China at that point in time, dude, you're lucky if you even make it halfway across the ocean, and then you got to come back. So even if you make it over there and gather information, you then need to come back and survive the trek backwards to then provide that information to your culture. It doesn't really seem like it's logically capable of that happening at points in time when it was very hard for these individuals to travel. And I just wanted your thoughts on that, man.
Yeah, international travel, the international travel and the stories of seeing the same things are baffling. When I was looking into this, the Qatar wasn't even originated in Africa. It was originated in Persia. And these things are known to have shape-shifting abilities. And they're usually hanging around New Delhi. And some of these creatures have the ability to not rip, but take the heart out of a person while they're still standing. Like they can stand next to them and take the heart out of I hate to say this, but a person, and they just use like some kind of magic or something like that, and they just boop, take your heart.
I mean, it makes sense, dude. That reminds me of Indiana Jones, dude, right? The Temple of Doom, I believe it was. And I mean, if the Aztecs and Mayans were able to do that, I mean, realistically, I would hope this would never occur. But as you punch your chest right there and stuff like that, I don't know, man. You probably really could just, if you wanted to hit somebody hard enough and break their sternum, reach in and pull their heart out. So I don't really think it's that far fetched, especially if a human can do that. So I mean, now something that's considered to be potentially a little bit stronger. I mean, here's some science for people. Apes, for example, they don't have an on and off button with their strength, okay? Meaning it's all one charge. So a gorilla could rip your arm off by mistake, meaning not even wanting to do that, but they don't have a toned down power source. Whereas, for example, you and I, if we're working on something where you need to put less pressure or be easy on it, we have that capability. They do not. And most animals don't, meaning they have just the full-fledged strength, and that's why they can potentially hurt themselves, etc. So yeah, I mean, a gorilla can rip your arm off, a chimpanzee can. So I don't really see why, that couldn't occur, man.
No, no. It's that one of these creatures could stand next to you and just pluck your heart out of your chest with magic. Like, you can be standing there, and when they do the autopsy, your heart is gone. You don't know where it went. This Cathar creature took it.
Yeah, it sounds like some skinwalker stuff, man, for sure, dude.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because then you have two different kinds in Africa. The one that does sound like the skinwalker, and the one that sounds like the cynocephala. And I believe it was the 8th volume of the Roman Encyclopedia, where there was a group of female and males that were believed to be shapeshifters, and they were not welcomed and were pushed out of an area, and then they were reported to go live up in the mountains with the cynocephala, which is why I think you have two different variations. Some depict the cynocephala as fully canine-like beings. Others say they have human-like bodies and stuff. And I think that's why some of the differences maybe, come up in there. I mean, if you're able to transform back and forth, I don't see why the cynocephala potentially wouldn't welcome you into their culture as well. So again, you get another reference right there of these people or tribal individuals that were doing this that then went up to live in the mountains. And super interesting stuff, man. I mean, you got some cases where some of this could tie into racism and such because people don't understand things. And there are very quality situations that support that, but then a ton of other situations that don't tie into that. That's where, the real interesting stuff kind of comes into play, man. And I wanted to, before we let you get back to your busy schedule, I wanted to know if you had any more insight on any of this or any sort of questions or anything you'd like to touch base on before we let you roll, man.
I just find this fascinating, and I can't help but think that, could you imagine being at a bus stop and you see somebody that, I don't know if you have this, but you get that weird dar going on. You're like, oh, this person isn't a person. And look, they're different. Not to say that people, like a different looking person isn't a person. Anyway, sitting at a bus stop and they're standing there, and then all of a sudden somebody just dropped, and oh, it's a heart attack, whatever. And they come to find out, you read the newspaper, and they're like, man drops at a bus stop, did an autopsy, heart's missing. You're like, I know what that was.
That's some pretty creepy stuff right there. And that's why I definitely think there's a common ground, but also a difference between like the cynocephala and the occult aspects. Because I mean, as far as I understand, the cynocephala had no sort of occult type activities or powers. They were just very badass warrior like canine hominoids that could be unalived and also be very destructive. But then again, in human culture, I mean, you have people that have dove into the occult and such. So I mean, I don't see why it's that far fetched to also have potentially some of them that might have decided to dive up into that type of historical references as well. So yeah, man, I mean, there's a ton of different stuff going on for sure. I do always appreciate you coming in and trying to figure this out with me and being part of the Midnight Society and being one of my good buddies and a good teammate, man. I appreciate you, dude, because I think sooner than later we're going to be able to bring some real quality evidence and credence to what's occurring, man. So I totally do appreciate you. And
yeah, I'd like everybody to check out The Nightmare Road. We're on YouTube and Spotify, all the other podcasts, and we do have a merch store. Teespring, Decon does all our artwork for that. There's some pretty cool stuff on there to check out. And other than that, that's it.
Yeah, I got the links up there. I actually got you all up on my suggestion thread as well. So yeah, no, great stuff. And talk to Colleen and everybody else, and maybe we can do something where we can do like a limited edition apparel combination between us and some of the stuff we're doing and such, and that'd be pretty cool too, man. So,
Yeah, I was, I got to thinking, I'm like, maybe we should do like a Christmas thing or New Year's thing. Just all of us crazy people just talking. It'd be fun.
keep me posted, man. That'd be great stuff. I know at some point Colleen's trying to get the whole entire science team up on my podcast at once and stuff. So yeah, just speak to Colleen and such, and let's try to set something up, man, for sure. I know she is a little bit busy, but toning down a little bit now and get some more time. So yes, please do keep me posted, man.
Will do.
Ooh, you beautiful people, you. If you did make it this far tonight, you truly are legends, and I do adore you. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and feed the algorithm. And I will catch you very soon.